Right, I didn't expect to be doing a next Celtic manager video today, but here we are. We might as well embrace it. Ange Postecoglou has left Celtic officially now. He's joined Tottenham Hotspur. He signed a 4-year deal with them. The news was announced by both Celtic and Spurs at around about 10:30 this morning. Celtic had a statement that went out. It included words from CEO Michael Nicholson, Chairman Peter Lawwell, Ange himself, and of course club captain Callum McGregor. Most of it wasn't really newsworthy, to be honest. Nothing major, apart from a mention from Ange's bit actually of the Celtic hierarchy wanting him to extend his stay at the club. I guess that is hardly a massive surprise though. Just final comment on Ange, because I kind of covered it yesterday. I've loved the last 2 seasons. They have been like 2 of the best seasons ever to follow Celtic. It is the best period I have ever had, 26-year-old guy, so I don't really remember all of the Martin O'Neill stuff. But the last 2 years, just doing it, being part of this channel, has been 2 of the best years of my life. I'll forever be thankful to Ange Postecoglou for coming to Scotland and for delivering all of the success and all of the enjoyment. I mean that. I appreciate it so much. He's a legend, but he's away now. And things move on, and so shall we. So we last did this kind of video back in November 2020. Oh, what the hell was going on with my hair? Dear oh dear. Wow. I'll blame the pandemic for that. Anyway, any guesses who the 7 names that we spoke about on that video were? Well, obviously Eddie Howe was one, as you can see him in the background there. We also had, wait for this, Marco Silva, it's an alright start, Mark Hughes, Jack Ross, Alex Neil, Stalis Solbakken, and Dan Petrescu. What the hell was going on back then? You'll be delighted to know that this list we've got coming up is a good bit stronger, although if you are watching this in 2027, you may well disagree. I hope things are good. I hope the future is good, by the way. I hope Celtic have won many more trophies by then. Right, we are just going to get on with it. As I say, 7 names, 7 realistic candidates. 5 of them are very realistic, I would say. They've kind of all been mentioned recently. I've chucked in a couple of left field shouts at the end as well, just to kind of make things a little bit more exciting. Just before we start, by the way, a lot of you watching our video, I mean, yesterday's video, like, incredible. It's like nearly 50,000 views in like less than a day. It's mad, crazy, but a lot of you coming across, maybe a lot of you not subscribed, so I will just very quickly remind you that if you pause the video and subscribe, it does mean a hell of a lot to us, so yeah, go and do that, thank you. Right, let's move on. Brendan Rodgers, okay, the immaculately turned out elephant in the room, former Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers. Could he really come back to the club? Would it work? Would you welcome him back with open arms? Right, my take on the Rodgers stuff is that if we are going safe, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, I think that's a viable option. If Celtic want to go safe here, Brendan Rodgers is the man. He knows the club. He knows the league. He is a good manager. He would get the respect of the players instantly, I think, and he would keep us winning in the league. You know, I'm pretty sure of that. But would that necessarily be the right choice to go back for Brendan Rodgers? I'm always of the opinion you should move forward rather than looking back. Under Ange, we were on a journey. We all felt it. That's what was so intoxicating about the whole 2 years, nearly 2 years under Ange, was we were, from day one, we were on a journey, and we were still on that journey like 3 or 4 days ago. There was still hopes that next season we could be bigger and better and do something in Europe and all of that stuff. If Brendan Rodgers came in, I kind of feel like that journey would be away. We wouldn't really be on a journey anymore under Brendan Rodgers, I don't feel. I feel like it would kind of just become about winning And yeah, that isn't a bad thing at all. I mean, our rivals are desperately trying to get to the stage where they can win anything. But I just feel, with the relationship he may no longer have with the Celtic support, I do think if he came in and won games, fickle football fans would probably start chanting his name and all of that stuff. But I do think there would still be an element, and we would never get that same feeling that we had under Ange. Now, maybe we won't get that regardless of who we do appoint. Basically, I'm on the fence about Brendan Rodgers. If he's appointed, I would not be against it, but equally I would always have reservations about the long-term suitability of him in the role. Would we be on a journey? Would we have an end goal? Would he be away to England with the first offer that he got? Quite probably. So those are my reservations there. The report last night from The Sun suggested that Rodgers wasn't keen to come back at this stage. That ties in with a few things that I've heard. I've heard that he's wanting a year out, and that the USA men's national team could be his next destination. So he may get to work with CCV, whatever happens. Right, moving on, Graham Potter, and I just want to say at this stage that it is my preference, and just my preference, that we get someone in who's had English Premier League experience. Again, just my opinion, I stress that. I just think that Ange was such a kind of all-encompassing, huge character, huge figure at the club, that I think the best option is to get someone in who will get the players straight away, has experience of managing, in big matches in the English Premier League. My theory is our best managers go to England, Rodgers, Postecoglou. Why don't we try and get someone who's done quite well in England? And I think Graham Potter, fits the bill there. Probably be my number one candidate. He's just kind of been on a rise basically over the last 5-6 years. He had Ostersund's, and then he went to Swansea, Brighton and Hove Albion, and obviously got that big Chelsea job about a year ago. That didn't go well at all. I'm not going to shy away from that. I don't think many people would have done well with Chelsea last year, given all of the stuff that was going on off the park. And in terms of signings as well, it just seemed like a right state, that club, last year. And you saw that with, what did they have, 3 managers last year, and none of them really had much success at all. So I wouldn't necessarily rule him out, as a bad option because of that. I think you look at his Brighton team, maybe there's arguments that could he handle a major job like Celtic, because as much as Brighton is Brighton are a pretty good team, there's not nearly the same amount of pressure at Brighton as there is at Celtic. The Daily Mail reported earlier that we will sound him out. I've heard that compensation could be an issue, given that I think his contract is still in place at Chelsea, but to be honest, I don't have a clue how compensation works at all, so I'll leave that one hanging in the air. Pros for Potter: he's magic. Also, his teams play good football. He's got a good reputation. He seems very similar to where maybe Brendan Rodgers was in 2016. Cons, the song. Graham Potter, Ali. Nah, it's not very good, is it? Okay, Enzo Maresca, a really decent career playing the game for the likes of Juventus, Sevilla and West Brom. He has had several jobs as an assistant since retiring. He then took on Manchester City's under-23s. That's where he was when we last spoke about him. In fact, I think I did an Enzo Maresca video chatting about him, because he was linked with Celtic last time. He then went on to take on the Parma job in Serie B. Didn't go well, wasn't able to get that big club promoted back to Serie A or Serie A. So he was sacked there. He rejoined Manchester City at the start of this season, this time as an assistant to Pep Guardiola. He was interviewed for our job back in 2021. Is said to have impressed Double D, and I guess it's pretty reasonable to suggest that he'll be in the running here as well. I did hear from a pretty good Italian source about probably a week ago that there was something in this, and Celtic were interested in Maresca as a replacement for Ange. So, and things are going on. I think it was reported last night, and you're just hearing the name Enzo Maresca more and more. Again, I would rather a more proven name. My viewpoint is that Celtic have come a long way in the past couple of years, and while Maresca may have been a good appointment a couple of years ago, I feel the options are better now. We're now a Champions League team. We weren't 2 years ago. So I feel we should be aiming for a more proven manager. I know that John of this parish feels that maybe there's an argument that it's a better time for someone like Maresca because he doesn't have to oversee a massive rebuild. So yeah, cracked crest at 67, hail hail. Well done, Enzo. Right, Bodo Glimt that Wi-Fi password, and their manager Kjetil Knutsen. I'm not sure if the K's are silent, but we'll maybe find that out if something happens here. Another risk for me a slightly more exciting risk than Maresca. Knutsen is the manager of Bodo Glimt. They were the Norwegian team that battered us 5-1 on aggregate over 2 horrible Europa Conference League legs last season. They were excellent. They play a very similar way to how we did under Ange, but, well, certainly better over those 2 ties and on a fraction of the budget. So I can see the argument here. Knutsen comes in and plays a similar way, but has done well in Europe. Can he reach a higher level, given that Celtic have all the stuff that Bodo Glimt kind of don't? Again, it's a big risk. He has hardly managed many big clubs. He's not managed a club the size of Hibernian, never mind Celtic, so it would be a major risk. A lot of people kind of saying, is this another Ronny Deila? Seems very lazy, given that it's just, a nationality that they share, and Celtic are clearly in a very different place. But I would have reservations over him being able to get this squad fully firing. But again, I've got a mate who really, really likes the sound of Knutsen coming into Celtic. He's another one that's been mentioned as an option for us by STV. Jesse Marsch is yet another who has been linked. Yesterday by Sky Sports. He was also linked back in 2021. He was at Red Bull Salzburg then. He then went on to RB Leipzig, was sacked, and then went on to Leeds United and was subsequently sacked. Not done great in his last 2 jobs, but Red Bull Salzburg is probably the one that's most like Celtic in terms of expectations and where they kind of sit in a smaller country than obviously Germany or England, and he did really well. He excelled at Red Bull Salzburg. There is a link to Celtic here too that I think is interesting, and he did explain it in an interview with the Coach's Voice a few years ago. Marsch said, "The first obstacle for American coaches is trying to achieve the pro license. That's not so easy to find. You need to find sponsorships. I was able to get mine through Scotland and some relationships I've had with some clubs there. Red Bull had a relationship with Scotland and specifically Celtic. They sponsored me to be on the course." I think Peter Lawwell and the whole ECA thing that he was part of seemed to be the kind of link here between Marsch and Celtic. So this is a viable one. I'm not actually massively against this. I think his kind of blueprint, which is very energetic, Red Bull type football, would align pretty well with what Celtic did under Ange, and I think it'd be a pretty good next manager to come in and to maybe take us to the next level. But maybe Leeds United felt the same way after Marcelo Bielsa, who's certainly very similar to Ange Postecoglou, and obviously Marsch didn't follow on from Bielsa very well, but again, were Leeds just doomed to fail anyway? It's kind of hard to know. I wouldn't be unhappy if Marsch got the job. I know there are some question marks over whether he would be able to deal with the pressure. We'd need to kind of find out about that. Maybe some people would not be too happy about an American coming in with all their Ted Lasso isms, but we do have Alistair Johnson, who's kind of as American as they come, even though he's Canadian, so we're kind of used to hearing that accent. Okay, so the previous 5 that we've mentioned have all been linked in some way or mentioned in some way over the past 24 to 48 hours. The last 2 here are a couple of left field shouts that I wanted to throw in. I'm not going to spend nearly as long on them because there's like little to no chance they're going to be the next Celtic manager. But it's interesting anyway. Ralph Hasenhüttl is unemployed since leaving Southampton in November. I personally think Southampton may have stayed in the Premier League had they shown faith in him rather than going for like Nathan Jones and loads of other kind of forgettable people who eventually got them relegated. He did have a pretty decent track record at RB Leipzig prior to Southampton. So again, similar to Marsch in terms of the way he plays football, it would be good follow on from Ange. Just like I said with Marsch, Hasenhüttl may be a bit of a safer bet than Marsch. I think it is someone that we could attract as well, although he may prefer to go back to the Bundesliga and manage, I don't know, Mainz or someone like that. And finally, Francesco Farioli, and I'm only including him because so many people that I'm talking to on Twitter and Discord and all of these places are mentioning this name. Now, very quickly, most recently at Alanyaspor in Turkey, where he was the youngest manager in that league. He's now 34. His story is very interesting. Basically, one day, years ago, I think circa 2015, no idea why I've said circa there, but yeah, 2015-ish, in Italy, he wrote a coaching blog about Roberto De Zerbi's Serie C side Foggia. The piece then got back to De Zerbi, and he clearly made some sort of impact on him, and he remembered because then 2 years down the line when he was at Benevento, he got in touch with Farioli to offer him a job. The pair then worked together at Sassuolo and went their separate ways after that. Farioli's obviously gone into management. He's said to be quite highly regarded in terms of the way he speaks, and a lot of clubs invite him along to kind of, I don't know, dinners and stuff like that. He's obviously about as rogue a shout as you're going to get. I don't really understand why so many people are keen on him. He did speak in an interview about loving the passion of Scottish football and specifically the Celtic Rangers derby, so maybe people just like that. I don't know. Yeah, it's not going to happen, this, so I'm kind of questioning why I included it. Right, everyone, that'll do us for today. Let me know below what you think about the hunt for the next Celtic manager. Who do you want? And remember to follow 67hailhail.com for all the twists and turns.